Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Yoga Cafe. Today is the last in our series on balancing our emotional selves. And I thought today we would really address times when there's a big emotional upheaval. So it could be considered maybe an emotional crisis. Of course, none of this is to be replaced by medical care, but these are for times when you want to complement your medical care. So anytime where the emotions are strong, but not harmful. So this is a practice that I hope will help whenever those emotions feel a bit overwhelming, okay? So typically, when we sit down to practice and we're deciding what it is we're going to address, really what we want to focus on is whatever's coming up. So when, you might have a set routine, but if something is bubbling up, throw the routine out the window and address what that thing is that's bubbling up. So let's begin. I want you to make sure that you have on hand a lot of water. We are going to be vocalizing today, and sometimes that kind of dries you out. The other thing you'll want to have on hand towards the end of the practice is two chairs, either a chair and a couch or two chairs, and then some pillows and blankets for the end of the practice when we do lie down and rest or sit down and rest. And I want to make sure that you're as comfortable as possible. All right, so go ahead and grab your props. And then a lot of this is going to be done standing, but of course you can always modify, adapt it to a seated practice. Okay, so let's imagine that you come to the practice and you get ready to do your 108 sun salutations or your joint warm-ups, and you realize you really can't do those things because there's a big emotion that is taking priority for you today. So when that happens, I like to think of it as a bit like a fire. Strong emotions are a bit like a fire. They change everything they touch. So the first thing you got to do is you got to get out your fire extinguisher. You got to bring it down a little bit, reduce the charge of the emotion, because when that charge is so high, it can be really challenging to even understand what's underneath the emotion. So let's imagine that you've sat down to practice. You realize, I'm not going to get anywhere unless I address this emotion that's coming up. So the first thing you want to do is bring that charge down. And you do that by shaking out the hands. And then you're going to take a few breaths in through your nose and out through your mouth. You can vocalize. Or you can keep it quiet. But really get the mouth open wide. You can do this for as long as you like. Or as long as you feel that you need to in order to feel a slight shift in the fiery atmosphere of the emotion. Okay. And then you pause and you assess. Okay, how's it feel? And sometimes that's enough and you can move on with your practice. Sometimes you take an assessment, you say, okay, how do I feel now? How's it feel in my body? How's it feel in my emotional self? Am I able to focus on anything other than this emotion, this issue? Or is it taking up all of my resources of my mind and my body? And if that's the case, then we bring out an even bigger fire extinguisher. So this one is a series of movements and vocalizations to help cleanse this really strong charge of emotion. And I've heard it called Old Man in the Tide Pool, Old Man Searching for His Reflection. I've heard a few different names. This actually comes from the qigong practice. And we're going to go through it really slowly so that you can understand the different components of it. So the first component is a shushing sound out through your mouth. And the arms are just gonna, you'll lean over and go shh, 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 until there's no more exhale to expel, right? Shh, shh, shh. And the story that goes along with this is the old man that is searching in the water for a big pearl, a payday for his, financially strapped family. He's searching for something really big, and he can't find it. He thinks he sees it. He's searching. He can't find it. And so out of frustration, he stands up and he goes, to vocalize, and he realizes as he looks up that what he's been seeing in the water is a reflection of the moon. And so as he stands up, he goes, and that is a movement where you're actually leaning slightly back and dropping the elbows so that you feel a broadening across the chest as you vocalize the sound ha. And then the next movement is to bring both elbows to the right side of your waist. So you're going to be doing this little crunchy side bend. And the sound there is, it's almost sounds like a whoa. It's a ha. Okay, so it's a ha, then an oo sound, and then an o sound to the other side. And you go to the right side first, liver side first, then spleen. Okay, and you're going to do that movement, the ha, oo, 3 times. Right, so it's you exhale, 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 then you inhale up, and it's ha. 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 And that is 1 round. So 1 time shush, shush, shushing, and then 3 times ha-hoo-hooing, right? And you can do that several rounds, or you can do 1 round and just check in and assess, was that enough? Or do I need to do a few more? So I'm going to demonstrate 3 rounds all in a row. If you assess after the first round that you don't need any more than that, you can skip ahead to the next part. I'll begin by emptying the breath out. Then inhale. And then pause and assess, was that enough to take the charge of the emotional experience down a little bit so that you can maybe investigate it? Notice how your emotional body feels, right? Is it still drawing all of the attention, all of the physical sensation, or is there a little room? So you can keep doing the old man searching for his reflection. You can do that up to 9 times if you'd like. But I would recommend after every 3 rounds, you pause and assess. Okay. And then this is a good time to take in some water. And let's imagine that what you discovered after this assessment is that the charge is down and now you can work with the body. So then we go through our practice of working with the various joints, and we're just going to keep it really, really simple. We'll start off with the ankle joint. We'll start from the ground up. So ankle joint, just turning your ankle around. That's all. Again, when you're in the throes of this highly charged emotional state, you do want to keep things simple. All right, and then circle the other direction, same foot. And then when you're ready, shift to the other foot. And then other direction, same foot. Okay, and then feet come together. Bend your knees and start to circle the knees around. You can place your hands on the outside of the knees or over the top of the knees. I'm not a big fan of putting the hands right on the knees, but you can if you want. That's comfortable for you. Keep the feet flat as you do this. This does require a bit of concentration, even though it's a simple move. Okay, and then let's go the other direction. If the knees are bothering you, if there's pain there, you can make this movement really small. You don't have to do quite as many of them if you are doing it in this position. If you choose to sit down to circle the knees, you'll have to do quite a few more to get the joint to balance out. Okay, then come up to standing, separate the feet, about shoulder width or maybe a little wider. Key is to keep the knees slightly bent and then begin to circle the hips around. And here, I'll tell you from my own experience, here is where my mind tends to go back to whatever the emotional charge or problem, or it'll get sucked back in right here. So be very careful when you do some simple movements. You want it to be interesting enough so that your mind will stay with the body, but not so complicated that you get frustrated and add to the emotional charge. Okay, one more time around in this direction, and then we reverse. And I like to keep the knees soft here so that there isn't a lot of pulling on the knees. We just sort of balanced out the forces across the knee joint. So So you don't want to kind of reset that imbalance. Oh, that feels good. Okay, one more time around this direction. And then pause. See how that is. So from the heels to the hips, just notice how the different joints are experiencing you standing upright. And then we're going to come all the way up to the shoulders. One hand on the belly, the other hand is going to come across the body and up, any amount of up. And then when you get to this topmost part, I want you to turn your palm to face out and then reach the hand out and down. So it's similar to the ha move, where we're getting this stretch around the chest, kind of the upper armpit area. Yeah. Let's go around one more time this direction. And then when your hand is down by your side, reverse. So same arm. And consciously bring the arm across your body in front. I know it can be very tempting to simply drop the arm straight down, but see if you can go across. That's a nice stretch for the shoulder. And of course, my range of motion will be different than yours. So do what you can do within your comfortable range of motion. All right, next time the arm is down by your side, pause. And let's just assess between right arm and left arm if there's any differences in how those feel. And then when you're ready, switch to the other side. So the arm comes across, up, you turn the palm out and down. We're going to be using that turning the palm out and down movement quite a bit. And the reason for that is that it is a counter to our intuitive movement or protective movement when there's a lot of emotion. So next time the arm is down by your side, pause and go the opposite direction. So we have this thing called the red light reflex. And it is where the upper body tends to curl in on itself, right? A little bit like this, to protect the vital organs. So unless you are having an emotional experience where you're wanting to, beat up the world, if it's more of a defensive feeling that comes into the body, then you will be experiencing that red light reflex. So I want there to be some movement here through the arms and the shoulders that counters that red light reflex. And also discharges, if you do want to beat up the world, discharges some of the energy through the arms. All right, last one. And then we'll let both arms hang down. Whew, and just see how that feels. All right, now we're going to put everything together in a wave, in a spinal wave. So feet are now no wider than your hips. So they come in a little bit closer than they were before. And the key to the spinal wave is the placement of your hips. So just take a moment to let your hips rock back and then let your hips rock forward. Notice that feels much better to do if your knees are bent, if your knees are slightly bent, okay? Make sure that you're not going so far back that you get a crunch in your low back. You want to keep the pelvis slightly tucked and the weight still in the heels. Yeah, there's some weight in the toes, but still more in the heels as you go back, okay? So let's start here in this kind of backward leaning position, and then we'll bring the hips back, which is going to take the torso forward. Go down as far as you can comfortably. The backs of the legs may stop you. At the bottom, at your end point, bend the knees deeply, tuck the tail, tuck the chin, and roll yourself up. Let the hips swing forward and let the head go back. Okay, that's the topmost point. And then we go the other way. So hips go back, which pushes the torso forward and down. Let's inhale as we bend the knees and roll up and back. Exhale as we swing the hips back and fold forward. Inhale, roll up and back. Exhale, fold forward. Inhale, roll up and back. Exhale, fold forward. Now, this next time that you fold forward, go down about halfway. Bend, roll up and back, and then exhale, fold only halfway. Even if you can go a little further. Bend, roll up and back. Exhale, fold only halfway. 2 more times. This last one, you're not going to fold forward. Just exhale, bringing everything back into alignment. So let's talk a little bit about why that fluid rolling action is so vital when you're in the throes of a big emotional experience. So if you've got either a defensive posture or an offensive posture, chances are you're holding tension in your body. When the tension is stiff across the joints, you're not going to be very fluid, right? You're just going to be more like a Frankenstein movement. So making the movement smaller but more fluid is one of the ways you can ease that tension out of the joints, even out of the organ system, the fascial system, and really helps to diffuse what we call the issues in the tissues. Okay. So now we're going to do a similar, very fluid-like movement for the legs. This is where you might need your chair. And I'm actually going to take my socks off so you can see my feet a little better. So when horses are impatient, they do this thing with their hooves where they kind of stamp or claw at the earth. And we're going to mimic that movement with our legs in a slow kind of motion. So I'm going to turn a little bit to the side so that you can see this. Stand with your feet about hips width apart and turn the toes slightly out to begin. And then you're going to take one heel and place it as far away from you as you can comfortably go without putting weight on the standing toes, right? So the weight stays back on your standing heel. So for me, it's my left heel, okay? And then slowly bend the empty leg. So this is the heavy leg. This is the empty leg. Slowly bend that empty leg and pull the knee up. Then tuck the pelvis under. That's going to bring the knee up even higher. Then push the heel out and down. So it comes in, up, out, and down. In, up, out, and down. And if you feel steady today, you can let go of the chair. That's an option. In, up, out, and down. One more time, this leg. and down. And then we'll step the feet together and shake out the legs. And let's try it on the other side. So start just by seeing where the heel wants to go. And notice that if you bring the heel further forward than that, you start to put the weight on the toes of the heavy leg, which goes into the knees. And we don't want that. So weight in the heel on the heavy leg. And this heel really isn't touching much, okay? So we start by bringing the foot in, knee up, pelvis tucks to bring the knee up even more. Then you push the heel out and down. So it comes in, up, out, and down. In, up, out, and down. And if you want to try it without the chair's help, you can. Let's do one more. And then pause and just kind of shake out the legs. Okay, so that's a really nice one for kind of putting all the joints together, the ankle, knee, and hip joints together in a very structured way. But it does rely a lot on hip flexor movement. So I always like to counter that movement with a hip flexor stretch. And this kind of serves dual purposes here. This next exercise is not only an opening for the front of the hips, but there's also a chance to do a movement here where both hands cross in front and then the palms turn out, and we have that spacious quality from elbow to elbow. So the elbows are just kind of hanging off the shoulders here as we lean ever so slightly back. So it's very similar to old man looking at his reflection when you lifted up and you did the ha before you did the hu and ho. Okay. So we're just going to do one leg. Step your right foot back. And let's have the right heel lifted. Not a huge step back, kind of a low lunge, because I want you to be able to bend both knees and tuck the pelvis. Yeah? So it's inhale here. Exhale, bend both knees, lean back, exhaling through your mouth. And then inhale, you straighten up. Exhale. Inhale, straighten up. Exhale. Do one more time on this side. And then we're going to switch legs. So we're doing the first round without any arms. Take a breath in. Exhale. So both knees bent on the exhale and you lean back. Not so much that you get a crunch here. In fact, we want to tuck the pelvis slightly. One more time this side. And then step the feet together. Now, if you want to challenge yourself with balance, you can add the arms. So the arms are inhale, the hands cross in front of you, exhale through the mouth, and the arms go out to the sides. So inhale, exhale, and the elbows are just hanging off the shoulders as you lean slightly back, letting the chest open up. All right, so let's try that. Inhale up, exhale. Inhale up, exhale. Inhale up, exhale. Last one. And then we're going to switch legs. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Last one. And then just let the feet come together. Pause. Take a moment to assess again. Notice how you feel. Maybe there's been a little bit of discharge, maybe some heat. Maybe the heart is beating a little faster. Is it possible now to work with subtler aspects of your body, of your being? And maybe the answer is no, and you have to go back and do another round of old man looking at it, searching for his reflection. Or maybe we're able to move on to the energetic component of our practice. So let's assume that the emotional discharge is handled. It's there, you know, whatever issue is still there, but it's not quite as fiery as it was before. So now we're just going to go through our cleansing, nourishing, and harmonizing of our energy as a way to just keep everything else as stable and healthy as possible. So the first energy cleansing practice we're going to do is one that always makes me smile. It's called the Shivering Horse. And it actually starts out like before with the hands shaking, but then you quickly go into elbows, kind of as much as possible, releasing the tension through your joints. And then maybe even into your shoulders. You could go side to side, down into your hips. I don't know if you can see that I'm kind of wiggling my hips side to side, and then down into the knees and the ankles, all the way into the floor, okay? So let's do that a little bit faster. So wrists, elbows, shoulders, hips, knees, ankles. Wrists, elbows, shoulders, hips, knees, ankles. Boom. Just like a horse shivers its skin to flick a fly off. Phew. I did this one time over and over again. My dog, who used to come around and watch me, stared at me for several moments and then demonstrated the right way to do it. So if you have an animal around you who's really good at this, you can let them be your guide. Okay, last one. Whew. It's also really good for bringing up heat. All right. And then let's step the feet slightly wider than the hips, you know, just about shoulder width, toes turned slightly out. And we're going to bring the hands in front of the lower dantian. So if you think of a mall Santa Claus with all of their stuffing in their belly, you're going to wrap your hands around your Santa Claus belly with your palms facing the body. Elbows relaxed, fingers relaxed, shoulders relaxed. Back of your neck long, right? So resist the temptation to do this. Get the back of your neck long and then sink down into your heels. Let's visualize the heels as really connected into the earth. And as you breathe, you might even feel a slight movement of the body, really subtle, almost like you were standing in waist-high ocean water, and there's just this very light surf lifting you and dropping you with each breath. And every exhale, you feel those heels connecting to the earth a little bit more, like you were growing roots. And let's visualize now that those roots growing through your feet are pulling up the energy of the earth through your roots, through your feet, into your legs, all the way up into the lower Dantien, into this area of the lower belly. Visualize pulling that energy from the earth into the lower belly, and then just letting it stay there as you exhale. Let it store, kind of filling up the foundation. So the legs are full, hips are full. You're starting to fill up the low belly, pelvis, up to the hip bones, to your waistband. You just feel very solid, very secure and grounded with the earth. And we can use the analogy of our beings, our bodies, and our energy centers as being part of a home, a house. And when we do that, the low Dantien becomes the basement, right? Where the foundation is, where the water heater is, and the fuse box, and all the things that make your house cozy, warm, and functional, right? The big pillars of the foundation, the cement blocks. So we're filling up that foundation. And now I want you to visualize that you have some windows in that basement. And we're just going to open and close the window panes, letting out any stale air and bringing in, inviting in any fresh air. So the next time you exhale, open your arms, letting out stale air. And then as you inhale, bring the hands back in and let the hands come one over the other, but don't let them touch each other or touch your belly. So a little space there. So exhale, the arms open. Inhale, you're gathering that fresh air into your basement. Exhale, letting the stale air out. Inhale, gathering the fresh air in. And we do this with a really subtle movement of the arms. You don't want to have stiff fingers or wrists or elbows. We're going to be doing a lot of these passes, opening and closing motions. So we don't want to tax the arms by bringing tension in. So just keep it very gentle. It's not a hurricane, it's a slight breeze. Just clearing out the basement. And my movements may be a little faster or slower than yours. Go with your breath rhythm. The exhale is when the arms open, right? You're letting that stale air out. The inhale is where you're inviting the fresh air in. And let me just add to this visualization. Really feel that you are moving the energy, not just on the front surface of the body, but all the way through to the back. So you're emptying from the sacrum out through the belly. And then you're inviting fresh air in through the belly all the way to the back of your sacrum. Right? So there are no corners that are hidden. One more like that. And then exhale, the arms open. And this time, bring the hands up a little bit higher. Inhale. Now bring the hands in front of your chest. Again, the hands don't touch each other or touch the chest. Exhale, and the arms open again. Very subtle, very gentle movement. We've just moved up a floor in our house, and now we're in the living space. Right? This is the space that we invite our friends to dinner. We sit around and play games with our families or watch television. We have experiences with other people. This is the relationship area of the home, the social aspect of the home. So here you're opening up the windows again, letting the stale air out, and then inhaling, inviting the fresh air in. And all the way from the front of the chest, through the heart and lungs, all the way to the back of the rib cage. And then from the back of the rib cage, all the way through the heart and lungs and back out. And I say that just as much to remind myself as to instruct you, because I will often forget and realize I've just sort of harmonized the front half of my body and forgotten about the back half. There's also with this upper dantien or middle dantien, middle dantien, there's a little bit, not just an up and down, but a little bit of a forward and back. So I don't know if you can see this, I'm kind of exaggerating it, but I rock a little bit towards my toes as I exhale, the arms open, and then I rock a little back towards my heels as I bring the hands back in. And if you need to take a break, if your arms grow tired, you can let the arms come down by your sides and simply visualize opening and closing the window. And we're just going to do a few more here. Now, the next time you inhale, you're going to inhale and bring the hands all the way to the chest. And just take a moment to feel. To assess. And hopefully, more of that charge has been dissipated. And then we let the arms go. And we're going to come into our final posture or physical practice. So this is where you will want to have your 2 chairs. I'm going to use a couch and my chair. You might even want some extra pillows too. And let me just turn this down a little bit. Okay. So we're coming into a version of child's pose. And in this version, I find it's useful to use the chair so that you can hang out in it a little bit longer. If you come to all fours on the floor and you sit your hips back like the child's pose in books, your feet will probably fall asleep after a few minutes and you'll have to come out of the pose. So this one I find very useful since I can stay here for a little while. So you'll notice that I'm putting my pillows on the seat of my chair. I want there to be a slight elevation difference between my chair and what I'm sitting on, because I want my heart to be at or even slightly above the level of my hips. So you'll see in just a moment how this works. I'm going to fold my arms, but you don't have to fold your arms. You can have them under the chair if that's more comfortable. But I'm going to fold my arms and rest my head. There we go. And it's a pose that when we see it in nature, it's really a signal to the rest of society that we need a few moments. We need some time to ourselves, right? If you see a child just kind of putting their head down on a table, usually that means I'm overwhelmed. So here we are, just letting the body be overwhelmed, be in this moment, feeling what it needs to feel, and not worrying about what society is saying. Just letting the emotion kind of drain out of the tissues. And breathing. Really important to have an emphasis on your exhales here. Let go of the emotion or of the charge of the emotion. Maybe you're not ready to let go of the emotion, but that sting, that fire, just dampen it so that you can look at whatever's happening with a little less passion. And if your head has been turned to one side, this is the time to switch to the other side. You're welcome to stay here for as long as you need to. Or if you feel that there's a shift, there's a change, there's a softening or a quieting, then you're welcome to slowly make your way out of the pose, because that's the idea there, is to create a shift. And then once you come out of the pose slowly, just find your way into a comfortable seated position and find your breath. Ideally breathing through your nose if you can. At this point, we don't need to do our ha's and our who's and our ho's. And take a few moments to feel the rise and fall associated with your inhale and exhale. Feel your hands resting against your thighs resting against your chair, your seat, whatever you're sitting on. Your feet resting against the floor. Feel that sense of grounding that you had earlier with your standing posture. And just take a few moments to assess the physical body, all your joints, your muscles, your breath, your heart beating. Notice your energetic body. There's often a slight exhaustion that comes from releasing an emotion. So you might feel a little bit tired, in which case that child's pose would be really useful to do for a little bit longer. Or you might feel energized. Maybe this thing that had its claws in you is finally released and you feel, oh, I can get on with my day. Notice your state of mind, the way you're thinking, processing sensations, visualizing. And then finally, notice the state of your emotions. And if there has been any shift whatsoever, okay. And that's the conclusion of our practice. I hope that this has given you some tools, some skill in working with your emotional balance on a regular basis, and then also during a big upheaval. Do make sure you drink plenty of water. All that hooing and hawing, it does dry out the mouth. And have a wonderful, wonderful day. Thank you.